Imagine a world where one empire was so powerful, so wealthy, and so self-sufficient that it saw itself as the very center of civilization. This was China during the High Qing dynasty in the 18th century. Under emperors like Kangxi, Yongzheng, and the Great Qianlong, the empire reached its zenith. Its territory was vast, its population was booming, and its economy was the envy of the world. Porcelain, silk, and tea from China were prized luxuries across the globe. Cities like Beijing and Guangzhou were bustling hubs of commerce and culture, with grand palaces like the Forbidden City showcasing the emperor's supreme authority. To the Qing court, all other nations were mere tributaries, barbarians clamoring for a piece of the Celestial Empire's glory. When British envoy Lord Macartney came in 1793 seeking trade, Emperor Qianlong famously dismissed him, stating that China possessed all things in abundance and had no need for foreign goods. This confidence, this belief in being the unshakable Middle Kingdom, set the stage for a dramatic and painful awakening. The world was changing, and a storm was gathering just beyond the horizon, one that would challenge everything the Qing dynasty stood for. That storm arrived in the form of a flower, the opium poppy. By the early 19th century, the British East India Company, desperate to reverse its trade deficit with China, found a sinisterly profitable commodity. They began smuggling massive quantities of opium from British India into China. The effects were devastating. What started as a trickle soon became a flood, creating millions of addicts, draining the empire's silver reserves, and tearing apart the social fabric. The Daoguang Emperor, alarmed by the crisis, appointed the incorruptible official Lin Zexu to stamp out the trade. In 1839, Lin confiscated and dramatically destroyed over 20,000 chests of British opium in Guangzhou. This act of defiance was the spark that ignited the flame of war. Britain, claiming its merchants were wronged and demanding free trade, responded with military force. Their modern steam-powered gunboats and advanced weaponry were unlike anything the Qing military had ever faced. The First Opium War had begun. The once mighty empire, which had viewed outsiders as insignificant, was about to face the shocking reality of its own vulnerability. The clash was brutally one-sided. The Qing's traditional junks and outdated cannons were no match for the Royal Navy. British forces easily blockaded ports, sailed up rivers, and captured key cities. The war exposed the Qing's technological and military backwardness in the starkest terms possible. By 1842, with British ships threatening the vital city of Nanjing, the Qing court was forced to sue for peace. The result was the Treaty of Nanjing, the first of what would become known as the Unequal Treaties. Its terms were humiliating. China was forced to pay a massive indemnity to Britain, open 5 major ports, including Shanghai, and Guangzhou, to foreign trade, and, most painfully, cede the island of Hong Kong to the British Crown in perpetuity. This treaty was a seismic shock to the Chinese psyche. For the first time in its long history, the Celestial Empire was humbled by a foreign power on its own terms. The concept of sovereignty was fundamentally eroded. No longer could the emperor dictate the rules. Now, foreign powers could impose their will, protected by their own laws on Chinese soil under the principle of extraterritoriality. The door to China had been kicked open, and the world rushed in. The humiliation from abroad was soon matched by catastrophic turmoil from within. The Opium War had shaken faith in the Qing dynasty's mandate to rule. Social and economic distress, combined with widespread anti-Manchu sentiment, created a fertile ground for rebellion. In 1850, a man named Hong Xiuquan, who believed himself to be the younger brother of Jesus Christ, launched the Taiping Rebellion. It was one of the bloodiest civil wars in human history. The Taiping Heavenly Kingdom established its capital in Nanjing and at its height controlled a significant portion of southern China. For over 14 years, the Qing dynasty fought a desperate war for its own survival, a conflict that would ultimately claim the lives of at least 20 million people. While the Qing were consumed by this internal struggle, the foreign powers saw an opportunity. Citing minor incidents as pretexts, Britain and France launched the Second Opium War in 1856. They sought even greater concessions, including the legalization of the opium trade and full diplomatic representation in Beijing. Once again, Qing forces were overwhelmed. In 1860, Anglo-French troops marched on the capital itself. In an act of what was described as cultural vandalism, they looted and burned the magnificent old summer palace, the Yuan Mingyuan, a vast complex of gardens, palaces, and priceless art, to the ground. It was a symbolic and devastating blow, a message that not even the emperor's sacred retreat was safe. The defeat in the Second Opium War and the subsequent treaties further weakened the Qing. The central government's authority crumbled as regional governors who had raised their own armies to fight the Taiping rebels grew more powerful. The court was divided between conservatives who resisted change and reformers who argued for self-strengthening by adopting Western technology while preserving Chinese culture. But these efforts were often too little, too late. Meanwhile, the world was entering a new age of imperialism, and China was seen as the ultimate prize. Japan, a nation that had rapidly modernized, defeated China in the First Sino-Japanese War of 1894-95, seizing Taiwan and asserting dominance over Korea. This shocking defeat by a former tributary state triggered what became known as the scramble for concessions. Germany, Russia, Britain, and France carved out spheres of influence, leasing territories and securing exclusive railway and mining rights. It seemed as if China was about to be partitioned like Africa. This intense foreign encroachment fueled widespread anger and resentment among the common people, leading to the rise of a secret society known as the Boxers. With their anti-foreign and anti-Christian zeal, and the tacit approval of the Empress Dowager Cixi, the Boxers laid siege to the Foreign Legation Quarter in Beijing in 1900. The response was swift and overwhelming. An international army, the Eight-Nation Alliance, marched on Beijing to crush the Boxer rebellion, subjecting the capital to another round of looting and imposing yet another crushing indemnity. The Qing dynasty was now a ruler in name only, utterly dependent on the very foreign powers it had once scorned. The final years of the Qing dynasty were a period of terminal decline. The Boxer Protocol signed in 1901 was the final nail in the coffin, a national humiliation that left the government bankrupt and powerless. Despite some last-ditch reform efforts, the dynasty had lost all credibility with the Chinese people. The idea that this foreign Manchu dynasty had lost the mandate of heaven was now widespread. Revolutionary ideas, inspired by figures like Sun Yat-sen, spread rapidly, calling for the overthrow of the monarchy and the establishment of a republic. The end came swiftly. In October 1911, an uprising in Wuchang triggered a chain reaction of provinces declaring their independence from Qing rule. The dynasty crumbled with surprising speed. On February 12, 1912, the last emperor, the child Puyi, formally abdicated the throne, bringing over 260 years of Qing rule and more than 2 millennia of imperial history in China to a close. The fall of the Qing marked the end of an era, but it was also the beginning of a new, arduous journey. The century of humiliation left deep scars on the national psyche, shaping modern China's intense desire for sovereignty, strength, and respect on the world stage. The road to recovery would be long and fraught with war, division, and revolution, but the memory of this painful decline continues to fuel China's quest to reclaim its place in the world. Thank you for watching this journey through a pivotal moment in history. If you found this interesting, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shaped our world. See you next time.